here and see if it's about the top of the hour. So see if there are any questions that I can answer.
Thank you, Javier. And we do have a few questions here. Looks like we may have more than we'll have time for. We can certainly go a little bit past the hour, and then if folks need to drop off, they'll know that we'll be circulating materials and so forth. So hopefully that'll be fine with our audience members. But here's one that says, are there any specific information gaps that can lead to elongation of the underwriting process or time frame?
Yes, no, definitely, right? So, I mean, all depends on the firm that you are buying, right? But say, for example, that it's a heavily so it's a technology firm, so it's heavily dependent on IP, right? And then as a buyer, right, then you don't have, or you don't, for whatever reason, right, you don't want to incur the cost, or because you feel comfortable with it, then you don't essentially go through the underwriting, the diligence process, right, or in-depth diligence process, right? Then that's going to be an example in which then insurance company is not going to feel comfortable, right, because because obviously the value of the firm, right, is highly dependent on the IP in this particular example, right? So the insurance firm is going to want to make sure that, particularly around reps and warranties, that cover critical assets of the firm, right? Critical sources of value, and in this particular example, IP is one, right? That if there's not enough diligence around those particular issues, then the insurance is going to have, less appetite to cover that risk, and then it's going to need more underwriting, right? So, but I mean, the process, it's what it is, right? So, I mean, I think the insurance, so it essentially won't elongate forever, right? So the insurance company will come and is either going to be comfortable with the warranty or not, and then you as a buyer or seller, right, then has the option to provide more information and or essentially narrow the warranty rep or agree that it's not going to be covered, right? So I mean, I think there'll be a point where the underwriting process just ends from the insurance perspective, and then they make their decision, right? And that is fast. So one they've made, I think, another point on this subject matter. I think another point to note, right, is it's difficult, right, to change the insurance mind, right? So once you get that draft of the policy and they've sort of come to the exclusions, then it's going to be it's doable, right? But and it happens all the time, right? But then it's sort of difficult to get the insurers to change their minds, right? So that negotiation process is going to take some time. But I think and I'm going into this, right, because to answer your question, right? So that negotiation process can elongate the underwriting process, right? If there are gaps, right, then in the diligence, then that might essentially take the underwriting process longer, right? Because it's more of an iterative process. There's insurance asking you providing, and then insurance asking you for more until they get comfortable or not with their warranty.
Okay, thank you. Here's one more that came in. I think you may have covered it, but let's go ahead and review it and make sure that all the attendees are clear on this one. Who pays for the policy, the buyer or the seller?
Yes. No, it's a very typical question, right? And so the answer is both, right? So it doesn't matter, right? So whether it is an insurance policy that is being issued to the buyer or is an insurance policy that is being issued to the seller, it can be paid by both, right? Or it can be paid by one or the other, right? So, but obviously it depends on the situation, right? So a lot of the deals that I worked on, typically it will be the seller, right? So the seller will come and say, hey, I want insurance, right? This is the case where these are individual sellers. And so then, they want to get all the proceeds, right? So obviously, if that is the case, right, then in most cases it will be the seller, right, that pays the premium because they're getting most of the benefit out of it, right? Say, for example, that I am a private, and I am, right? So say, for example, I'm a private equity buyer, and then, it's on your benefit as well, right? So you want insurance because when you sell the firm, then, you're a private equity seller, right? And, then in that case, then, more likely than not, then it would be also the seller, right? In this case, the private equity firm that would pay for the insurance. Because essentially you want it as a seller because you want the proceeds as soon as possible. So typically, in most cases, it will be the seller. But then, so what would be the scenario in which the buyer pays? So most likely be a scenario where you're a buyer, then you're in a competitive sale process, and then you want to show the seller that you're competitive, that your bid is more attractive. In this case, then you will typically either, as a buyer, will pay for insurance, or you will pay for some of it, right? Because you want to make that bid as attractive as possible. But I think in general cases, one could argue that it's typically the seller that pays for the insurance. And that's the premium, right? And then there is the and underwriting fees, right? There is the deductible, which is not necessarily a payment up front, right? But that's a different point.
Okay, thank you. Maybe just one more question. There are a few more, but we'll manage those through the email process post-webinar here. But for cross-border deals, do you have any specific recommendations for sellers in terms of selecting RWI vendors? And then there's a correlated question. Do they need an in-country office?
That's an interesting question. So I don't know. I mean, obviously you have, so to be honest, I don't know. So in all the jurisdictions that I've done transactions, right, and that's essentially LATAM, Asia, Europe, and the US. There was always an insurance firm locally that I can tap into for insurance. I guess that's a good point, right? So I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know, right? So I mean, I think if you're dealing with more remote jurisdictions in which there isn't an insurance in place, an insurance policy in place, an insurance firm, a local insurance firm, then I think it'll be hard, right? So, but that's a good question. I'm afraid I don't know the answer. That's a good question, right? So, say for example, you're buying a company in Burkina Faso, right? And then and then they don't have a local insurance firm, or if they do, but obviously they don't have this product, right? I guess the question is whether you could essentially tap into a offshore, right, insurance firm and get coverage from there. I would think that yes. I mean, I think the difficulty there will be whether or not they're comfortable, the insurance firm that is offshore, right, it's comfortable underwriting the risk associated with all the reps and warranties, right? Because remember, I mean, I think lots of the reps and warranties are about legal issues, for example, right? So one, in order to underwrite, and then you'll need to have the local expertise, jurisdiction, regulatory, and for example, and legal framework of that particular country, right? So sorry, that's a long answer to the